Imagine a world without cars, electricity, or the internet. Picture a time when the only light after sunset came from flickering candles and the stars above. A time when the rhythm of life was dictated by the rising and setting of the sun, and the seasons determined the pace of work and rest. A world where castles dotted the landscape, standing as both fortresses and symbols of power. Knights clad in shining armor rode on horseback, ready to defend their lords and lands. Tales of chivalry, bravery, and adventure were not just stories, but a way of life, passed down through generations. This was the era of the Middle Ages, a period in European history spanning roughly from the 5th to the 15th century. It was a time of transformation where ancient traditions met new ideas, and the foundations of modern Europe were laid. The Middle Ages were a time of great change and upheaval, marked by both darkness and light. Wars and conflicts were frequent, but so were moments of peace and prosperity. The marketplace bustled with activity, and the church stood as a beacon of hope and faith for many. It was an era of feudalism, where society was rigidly structured and life revolved around the land. Peasants toiled in the fields, providing the sustenance that kept the manor houses and castles thriving. The bond between lord and vassal was one of mutual obligation and loyalty. It was also a time of profound religious devotion, where the Catholic Church held immense power and influence. Monasteries were centers of learning and preservation of knowledge, and grand cathedrals were built to inspire awe and reverence. Religious festivals and processions were integral to the community's spiritual life. From the fall of the Roman Empire to the dawn of the Renaissance, the medieval period witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the spread of new ideas, and the birth of some of history's most enduring legends. Scholars and thinkers began to question the world around them, laying the groundwork for future discoveries and innovations. Join us as we journey back in time to explore the fascinating world of the Middle Ages. Experience the vibrant festivals that brought communities together, the reenactments that keep history alive, and the majestic castles that have stood the test of time. Let's delve into the heart of this era, uncovering the daily lives of people from all walks of life, the dramatic events that shaped their world, and the cultural achievements that continue to inspire us today. From the humble blacksmith forging tools and weapons to the families living in simple cottages, each had a role to play in the tapestry of medieval life. Museums today preserve these artifacts, allowing us to connect with a time long past and understand the legacy that continues to influence our present. Medieval society was structured like a pyramid, with the king at the top and the peasants at the bottom. This hierarchical structure was rigid and defined every aspect of life during the medieval period. This system, known as feudalism, dictated the relationships between different social classes. It was a complex web of obligations and duties that bound everyone from the lowest peasant to the highest king. At the base of the pyramid were the peasants, who made up the vast majority of the population. They were the backbone of the feudal economy, working tirelessly to produce the food and goods that sustained the entire society. They toiled on the land, farming crops and raising livestock, providing food for themselves and their lords. Their work was essential, yet they lived in humble conditions, often struggling to make ends meet. Life for peasants was harsh and demanding, with long hours of labor and few comforts. Their homes were simple, often just one-room huts made of wood and thatch. Despite their hard work, they had little control over their lives and were subject to the whims of their lords. Above the peasants were the knights, warriors who swore loyalty to their lords in exchange for land and protection. These knights were the military elite of the medieval world, trained to fight and defend their territories. Knights were expected to be brave and skilled in combat, defending their lords and their lands from enemies. They were often called upon to fight in wars and conflicts, risking their lives for the sake of their honor and duty. They trained from a young age in the arts of war, mastering the use of swords, shields, and horses. Young boys, often from noble families, would start as squires, learning from experienced knights until they were ready to be knighted themselves. At the top of the social hierarchy were the nobles and the king. Nobles were powerful landowners who held vast estates and had significant influence over the people who lived on their lands. Nobles held large estates of land granted to them by the king and wielded considerable power and influence. They were responsible for maintaining order and justice within their territories, as well as providing military support to the king when needed. The king, as the supreme ruler, held ultimate authority, making laws, dispensing justice, and leading his armies in times of war. The king's power was absolute, and his decisions could shape the fate of the entire kingdom. He relied on the loyalty and support of his nobles and knights to maintain his rule and protect his realm. Despite the rigid structure of feudal society, there were moments of interaction and exchange between the different classes. Markets and fairs were common places where peasants, knights and nobles could come together to trade goods and share news. The church also played a crucial role in medieval life, providing spiritual guidance and support to all levels of society. Monks and priests were respected figures who could influence both peasants and kings. Festivals and religious holidays offered brief respites from the daily grind, allowing people to celebrate and enjoy communal activities. These events were important for maintaining social cohesion and providing a sense of shared identity. While the lives of peasants, knights and nobles were vastly different, they were all interconnected within the feudal system. Each class had its own roles and responsibilities, contributing to the stability and functioning of medieval society. The legacy of this period is still evident today in the castles that dot the landscape and the stories of chivalry and heroism that continue to capture our imaginations. The medieval era was a time of great hardship and great achievement, shaping the course of history in profound ways. The Middle Ages were a turbulent era marked by frequent conflicts, devastating plagues, and the rise and fall of powerful rulers. This period, spanning roughly from the 5th to the late 15th century, was a time of great upheaval and transformation. Societies were constantly in flux, and the landscape of Europe was shaped by the relentless march of armies, the spread of deadly diseases, and the ambitions of monarchs and warlords. Wars were a constant threat, with kingdoms vying for power, land, and resources. The medieval battlefield was a place of brutal hand-to-hand combat, where knights in shining armor clashed with swords and lances, and where the fate of entire nations could be decided in a single day. Castles were besieged, towns were sacked, and the common people often found themselves caught in the crossfire of these relentless conflicts. One of the most devastating conflicts of the period was the 100 Years' War, a protracted struggle between England and France that lasted for over a century. This war, which spanned from 1337 to 1453, saw numerous battles, shifting alliances, and significant political and social changes. It was a time of great heroes and villains, of epic sieges and daring raids, and of a relentless struggle for dominance between two of Europe's most powerful kingdoms. This war saw the rise of legendary figures like Joan of Arc, a young peasant girl who claimed divine guidance and led French troops to victory. Joan's story is one of the most remarkable in medieval history. Born into a humble family, she believed she was chosen by God to save France from English domination. Her courage and conviction inspired her countrymen, and she played a crucial role in turning the tide of the war in favor of the French. Despite her eventual capture and execution, Joan of Arc remains a symbol of faith, bravery, and national pride. Another defining event of the Middle Ages was the Black Death, a catastrophic pandemic that swept across Europe in the 14th century, killing millions of people. The Black Death, which struck between 1347 and 1351, was one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. It decimated the population, wiping out entire villages and leaving a trail of death and despair in its wake. The disease, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, was spread by fleas that infested black rats, and it brought unimaginable suffering to those it afflicted. The plague had a profound impact on medieval society, leading to widespread fear, social upheaval, and economic decline. The sheer scale of the mortality rate caused labor shortages, disrupted trade, and led to a decline in agricultural production. The social fabric of medieval Europe was torn apart as families were decimated and communities were left in ruins. The psychological impact was equally severe, with people living in constant fear of the invisible killer that could strike at any moment. The Black Death also led to significant changes in religious and cultural practices as people sought to make sense of the catastrophe that had befallen them. Amidst the chaos and upheaval, powerful rulers emerged, leaving their mark on history. These monarchs and leaders were often seen as the stabilizing forces in a world of uncertainty. They built grand castles and cathedrals, established laws and institutions, and sought to expand their territories through conquest and diplomacy. Their reigns were marked by both great achievements and terrible atrocities as they navigated the complex and often brutal politics of the medieval world. Figures like Charlemagne, William the Conqueror, and Richard the Lionheart shaped the political landscape of medieval Europe, forging empires, conquering new lands, and leaving behind legacies that continue to resonate today. Charlemagne, also known as Charles the Great, united much of Western Europe and laid the foundations for modern European states. William the Conqueror, with his victory at the Battle of Hastings in 1066, changed the course of English history. Richard the Lionheart, famed for his role in the Crusades, became a legendary figure of chivalry and martial prowess. These rulers, with their ambitions and achievements, played a crucial role in shaping the medieval world and the history that followed. Despite the hardships and challenges of the era, the Middle Ages witnessed a flourishing of art, architecture, and literature. Medieval artists and craftsmen created works of great beauty and skill, expressing their religious devotion, love of nature, and fascination with the human condition. One of the most enduring architectural achievements of the Middle Ages was the construction of magnificent cathedrals, towering structures adorned with intricate carvings, stained glass windows, and soaring arches. These cathedrals served as centers of religious life, inspiring awe and wonder in all who entered. Medieval artists also excelled in manuscript illumination, decorating religious texts with elaborate illustrations, intricate calligraphy, and precious metals. These illuminated manuscripts, often produced in monasteries, are a testament to the skill and artistry of medieval scribes and painters.